You'll see America's favorite sport on WHBQ television.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
It's March the 18th, 2025. Yellow again, everybody. It's Randy Hills, and this right now is the solo owner, founder, and president of Power Pro Wrestling. Frank Seaton in the house. PJ is here. Also, Gregory White in the house. Drew and Rusty William. Dr. Robinson is in the house. Don't forget, everybody, Rusty at midnight tonight is releasing, or maybe it's escaping, his brand new podcast. His brand new podcast, episode number 3 of The Good Doctor. And I'm looking forward to that great podcast coming up tonight. BC Collins is on the house. In the house, it's the Blues Doctor podcast on YouTube. Rusty gonna sing for us on that show tonight. I saw a little preview. A great podcast. Now my second podcast, favorite podcast there is. This one is mine. I want to start before we bring in our solo panel member that will be in the house with us today. I wanted to let everybody know, if there's stragglers, if there's people coming in that's never watched this show, number one theme, number one priority is memories. This podcast and everything involving the Randy Hill shows involving as a legacy to the memories of Memphis wrestling. And we do that, I think, better than anybody, and this fantastic group of people, Team Hells, that's watching the show every single week. Man, I appreciate every one of you. Memories. We'll get into memories. But you know what? I've noticed as you get older, and the older you get, the way it kind of gets out of extreme. We forget to look at what's going on today because we're so consumed in how it used to be done. Just think about your childhood because I think about mine. My childhood was about 4 minutes from where I am right now on the west side of Jonesboro, Arkansas, where my story began at 636 Warner in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Think about memories all the time. And I drive in West Jonesboro all the time. I want to tell you about the old Citizens Bank building. For many, many years, it was the tallest building in Jonesboro. It closed down, been empty, been deserted for years and years and years and years. However, in the last couple of months, city inspectors saw the building was leaning. So it's right in the middle of Main Street. Heavy traffic, Highway 141, heavy traffic, extreme traffic, a lot of businesses. It's the place to go. A whole block and a half has been shut off, and now the demolition people have journeyed to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and they've started the demolition process right now. And Adam, if you will go to the pictures, and if you would call up that picture of that old bank building, the place, it gives me absolute chills and upsets me. This building, the Citizen Bank building on the corner of Washington and Main Street in Jonesboro, Arkansas, was the first bank I ever went to. This is the first bank that I ever had a bank account in. This bank and this building and this part of town means a lot to me. And you see that building right there. I wanted to open with that. Absolutely wanted to open with that because even though this show is about memories, also, just in Jonesboro alone, you should see the Arkansas State University football field. You should see the great constructions all over town. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, man alive, things change. Want to bring in right now before we get into the meat of this subject, and we're going to go right for the emotional heartstrings pretty quick. But we want Michael to get involved with this story about memories and him growing up in Alabama. I'm sure there's a Citizen Bank building, something around there that's important to him and a big part of his life in the past. All of a sudden, one day, it's gone. Welcome to the show, Michael Sands, John, and Joshua. Yay!
And Joshua, say hello to your buddy. Say, hey, Randy.
Hey.
Hey, Joshua, how you doing, man?
How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
I
he
like
said
your shirt.
he said he liked your shirt. What does your shirt say?
Oh, I can't read it.
Crimson Tide?
The Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
Crimson Tide, the great
Yeah, but
Alabama.
He's a Vandy guy. Trust me, I'm making him into a Vandy guy. I thought he was going to wear his red shirt. He's got a red jersey like this that we match, but you didn't wear your red jersey tonight, did you? No. All right. Well, I'll let you go play. I know you're playing your video game. He wanted to say hello to Uncle Randy before we got started.
Joshua.
Hi, everybody. You know what's funny is this is parallel to something that's happening right now in downtown Huntsville, and the bank building looks about the same age as what the old city hall was here in Huntsville. They used marble from down in Sylacauga, Alabama, which is the marble capital of the USA, believe it or not, to build this building back in the mid 60s. They tore down one of the most beautiful colonial structures of a courthouse and replaced it with the box that came in. And that was called urban renewal. And there are a lot of buildings that are about that same age that they replaced these beautiful buildings with that they're now having to tear down because they're leaning, they're falling apart. The city hall was falling into the big spring park. They got to tear it down. So they built another city hall, 2023 city hall across the street. They went into it. They opened it about a month ago, and now they're tearing down. But they're having to take the marble of that building down, literally slab by slab. Will that building be imploded, or will they take it down piece by piece?
I think piece by piece. Let's put that. Maybe you see more. You see part of it. That looks like piece to me. Does it to you?
Yeah, but it also looks like they could be retro or fitting it to where they're going to make the explosion. But they haven't made it. By now, they'd have told you that they're going to blow it up because they normally now in a town our size or your size, when they blow it up, they make a big festival out of the thing. They sell beer and wine and all that stuff. But
very interesting situation. As much as and by the way, Randy West is watching today, and Frank Seaton is here, and PJ is here, and Michael. All kinds of people in the house, and I appreciate every one of you. On a show, this is real important to me, Michael, on a show that obviously our number one priority is go back and share memories, and from my part and from yours as well, for somebody that worked in there and had inside going on there, we want an inside situation, but we're talking about something 90% of the time that took place 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that is the basic point of the show, and that's our bread and butter. However, we do breaking news, we do weather coverage, we talk. Right now, what's going on is the NC2A tournament, and that's going on, and there's some controversy, and there's controversy in the NIT tournament, and Jonesboro has a home game in the tournament in the NIT tonight at the Convocation Center. So I'm loyal to our audience. I'm right here talking to Michael St. John and you guys. But I think it's cool to talk about current events as long as it's not politics. I think it's to other industries and entertainment, and certainly talking about current wrestling, different things. So I want this show to be a buffet, but the main dish on the buffet is Memphis wrestling history. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. It says Talking Memphis Wrestling. That's the name of the show. So you're 100% on target with that.
We're going to start with news, everybody. And Adam, there is a caption saying what day this is, and there's pictures to back this up. Today, folks, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Lance Russell in heaven. Happy birthday to you. Lance Russell was born on March the 18th, 1926. We lost him in 2017. The great Lance Russell passed away October the 3rd, 2017 at 91 years old. The great Lance Russell. So Michael St. John, I'm sure just as much as I am, you're celebrating the life and fantastic, we know, spending his birthday today in heaven. Your comments as we cover Lance Russell every show we ever do and hear from him in commentary, who narrated the Memphis story. That picture right there is Lance and Dave, my then probably 10-year-old great nephew Cal, who is 20 years old now, and that's all right. The founder, the owner, the president of Power Pro Wrestling, the great Lance Russell, and certainly we're going to get Michael on certainly Lance's birthday Good gosh almighty, happy days, happy times, happy days are here again. We miss us some Lance Russell, and that's the sad part of this conversation. First thoughts as we talk about the 99th birthday he's in heaven now, as there's the great Michael. I don't know if you ever saw this. This is after the celebration of life in Memphis, Tennessee, and that is his family, and there I am sneaking in, and we're taking a toast right now, having a toast. There's Shane, Rusty's back there, just a bunch of folks there, Shane's daughter, and the whole Russell family. Happy birthday, Lance. Here's Michael St. John.
Well, I don't think you can mention Lance Russell's name without putting the call letters GOAT. That stands for GOAT, which is the greatest of all time. I had the honor and the privilege of sitting next to Chan, to the greatest of all time, and just loving the interaction and loving the opportunity to work with a man that, sure, I knew he was a legend at that time, but he was also a friend and also somebody that Lance Russell was one of those few rare people that just loved life, loved the world, loved the people that were around the world with him. And he just had this, when you were with Lance Russell, whether you were sitting in the chair next to him or whether you were watching him on TV or reading something or doing something about him, I get a warm feeling when I talk about Lance Russell. It's a privilege. It's one of the high points of my whole life to have been able to actually be in the same camera shot with this man.
How about that picture that Adam did a great job finding?
I appreciate that, Adam, and I appreciate that, Randy, because to me, that's iconic. That's the master and the guy with him that's just honored and privileged to be there. And that was the great thing about Lance, and that the first time I ever had the opportunity to do with, and I had known almost the entire week that I was going to be doing the show with Lance the first time. And I got to tell you, it gave me butterflies. It was like, okay, I've got to be on my best game, because that's what Lance did. He brought out the best in you, period. And I'll never forget standing in the back an hour or so before the show, and we're going down the rundown sheet, and he and I were conversing, and it was like we had been best friends all our life. It was so easy, and it was so he was so ingratiating and taking me into his world, which is what it was happening. And when we hit the camera, we talked and acted like we had always been there, and he put my mind and my heart and my stomach at ease that day. And I love the man. I will confess, I love the man. One of the hardest things I missed his funeral, and I know I was wrapped up in some radio thing that probably now doesn't mean a hill of beans, but I give any amount of my time back to go and to celebrate the life of the GOAT, and to talk about the fact that he would have been 99 this year. Next year is the Lance Russell Centennial. Man alive. What a tremendous, tremendous human being, GOAT.
Now, help me with this statement. Put Shane Odom's last comment up there, if you would, Adam Dunn, and let's read that. And this is an interesting situation. I'll answer, then Michael will answer. Shane says, who would y'all like to have seen commentate with Lance besides Dave Brown? It can be another broadcaster from another sport. Certainly, first thing I'm going to say, Dave and Lance together was a match made in heaven. Lance and Michael St. John were great. Lance and Corey Macklin did a very good job. Lance was just going to be excellent with anybody. As far as who would you like to see commentate with Lance besides Dave Brown and of course yourself and Corey, I can tell you who we had at one time that didn't work, and that's one of the most respected wrestling commentators of all time, Gordon Soley. Gordon Soley and Lance Russell did not work. Absolutely. And as Adam is saying, That wasn't Lance's fault. It was forced. The idea was forced. It was a mistake. And I'll let you answer that question.
Well, first of all, and I've seen many of the tape of Lance and Gordon working together, both in Atlanta and then when Gordon came on TV in Memphis. I think you had two personalities that were very dominant on television personalities. I call them, in the business, we call them the number one chair. It's just like it's just like a newscaster, the guy that is the number one seat in the 6 and 10 news in Memphis or Huntsville or Birmingham or Louisville or wherever, Atlanta, New York, you name it. That number one guy is the guy that people recognize, the people gravitate to, and normally has a very warm and inviting personality through that camera lens. And I think Lance exuded that. But I also think that Gordon was a different style, Gordon was more of, I think Lance Russell was a great commentator for professional wrestling. I think Gordon Solie was a great commentator for wrestling, more so because of the style he would have been perfect in an amateur wrestling, calling an amateur match, as he was good doing the professional match. I think Lance had more charisma that came over the camera than Gordon had. And I had him once opportunity to work with Gordon Solie, and he was a wonderful man. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I think I've told the story. Took him to the airport in my Winnebago to drop him off. We were on our way to Florida. We had the whole family in the thing. And when I did the show down on Techwood Drive with Gordon, and I had several conversations after that with him, and I thought he was a fantastic person. He wrote children's books on the side. But I think the thing about Lance Russell that was so magical to our world of professional wrestling was his charisma. Ultimate professional, knew what to say, how to say it, when to say it, knew when to shut up and when to talk. That's checking a lot of boxes. A lot of folks out there think, well, maybe it's easy. You just get on there and start talking like we do on this podcast. When you're doing a show, there's a million different boxes to check. You got to check time. You got to know what this means. You got to know what this means. You got to know what this means. I mean, there's signals, there's signs. You're watching a monitor. You're watching what's in the ring. You've got somebody in your ear from the truck or upstairs. You've got a floor director. A television production of live wrestling is a lot harder than you and me talking on a podcast tonight. And I think Lance sort of mastered all of those things. Not to say that Gordon didn't, but in a special way where he could still exude his warmth and his inviting style. Whereas Gordon was the ultimate pro. He could tell you the difference between a flying leg scissors and a cross-country front-face Nelson. And 9 different suplexes. Gordon had calls for 9 different suplexes. I knew 2. So, I think there's a greater style, different style, but I think for as good as Gordon had on the worldwide stage with the Superstation, Lance Russell was even better on the home stage in the territory of Memphis. I think when Lance went to Atlanta, had Gordon not been there, I think Lance would have had his opportunity to do the same thing on a national level. But Gordon was already in that first chair. So again, you can't have 2 first chairs. And that's my whole point here. Gordon had his world and Lance certainly had his.
What do you think about Richard Hood's comment? I would love to see Lance with Sterling Brewer. Comment on that, Michael.
That's a tough one for me, only because I knew Sterling on from an advertising standpoint. He had an advertising agency which bought advertising on the station that I was with in Birmingham. I always thought Sterling was a little too stiff. I thought Sterling never sort of let his hair down. I often wondered, and my question would be how he would do with Harry Thornton. But again, I think the two worlds would collide because Harry Thornton was so argumentative and Harry Thornton was so cornbread and hush puppies and down there by the riverside kind of thing. And I think when Nick originally had those teams, he had Lance and Dave in Memphis on that side of the territory. He had Harry on the Chattanooga side. The Nashville side went from several different announcers. There was never an announcer, in my opinion, in Nashville that ever had the personality or had the fans in the palm of their hand like Harry Thornton did in Chattanooga or Lance Russell and Dave Brown had in Memphis. Birmingham with Sterling, I thought, nice guy, liked him, but very stiff. Grady Reeves here in Huntsville had the Huntsville show on Channel 19 when they did live studio wrestling at 4 o'clock, a 1-hour show. And Grady wanted to be Grady first before he was the announcer for Championship Wrestling for Nick Lewis. And when I went to work for Nick, that's when he moved Grady off of 19. And in Louisville, of course, they were getting the Nashville show. And, you know, and I think later on, just before the demise, and then, of course, into the Jerry Jarrett era, they got Lance and Dave in Louisville. And I think they were over in Louisville, but I don't think they were over into the way they were in Memphis, because they were family. They were family in Memphis. And that, again, that sold the whole thing. I don't think Lance Russell could be Lance Russell without Jerry Lawler. I don't think Jerry Lawler could be Jerry Lawler without Lance Russell. That's my ending comment.
I agree with that 100%. He's Michael St. John. I'm Randy Hills. Joshua went to play. He'll probably be back before the end of the show. It is 24 minutes into the show. We probably won't get off. This is going to be a weird show today, and I think that's okay. And one thing I wanted to do, I stole something. I wanted to admit that to you. I went to Facebook. Actually, Shane Russell sent me a link. I would have stole it, but he sent it to me. Shane's older brother, Rusty, Lance Jr., I believe, is the official name of him, the Russell brothers. They put out Facebook posts, and Rusty does a video. He's a former production guy on television, does a great job. And every year they put together a video that's absolutely fantastic on their dad on his birthday. This is a 15-minute video, but it's certainly the main event of this show we're going to do early on, as we're still into the first segment of the show. You looking forward to seeing 15 minutes from the Russell boys and Lance Russell?
Why not? That's what we're here for.
Talking Memphis Wrestling, courtesy of the Russell brothers. We watch now.
Jerry Lawler comes in with Tommy Rich. Lawler pounding away on dirty roads. Tommy Rich over here with Larry Wright and Don Bass. Yeah, get the cameras out of the way. They have absolutely gone berserk. Come on, Jerry. Now, we've had all of this for one day. I want to see. Get him off of it. Calhoun, get him out of here. Hey, come on, Eddie. Can we get him out of there and get something going in? Oh. Well, we got an unscheduled fight is what we've got. Come on, Dundee.
Watching some of the, listening to some of the great work from Lance Russell. There's my guy, Eddie Marlin.
Davis threw powder right into Eddie Marlin's
Danny
eyes.
Davis. If I don't remember him throwing powder. Hey, Dundee too.
Well, if that doesn't bring a smile to your face and bring back some great memories, it's possible that you did not grow up like I did in Memphis, Tennessee, sitting in front of a TV on Saturday mornings watching Memphis wrestling. Hello, everybody. William Lance Russell back again to talk about my favorite topic, Lance Russell and Memphis wrestling. The two are inseparable as far as I am concerned. As of the recording of this video, it is March the 18th, 2025, and today is Lance Russell's birthday. He would have been 99 years old today. I'm not sure I can even contemplate what Lance would have been like at 99 years old. But as they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, so here to help me speculate on Lance at 99 is the only person I know who knows Lance Russell like I know Lance Russell, my brother, Jeffrey Shane Russell. What about it, Jeffrey Shane? Lance lived with you and your family for a few years in his latter life. You must have some thoughts about Lance at 99.
99 years old. It's just hard to even imagine. He lived with my wife and I for, the last years of his life, and we got to see him struggle with many things that old guys struggle with it. As you and I know, we're starting to struggle on some of those things too.
We are indeed.
You know, just dealing with, you know, the day-to-day life. You know, I can remember trying to change those hearing aid batteries out. You know, those things were so difficult. Even I had trouble doing it. You know, that stuff he would always have issues with.
That was difficult.
You know, the one thing I really loved, and my wife and I are doing it now, he was a big fan of the early bird specials at restaurants. He loved to go eat. He grabbed my wife and I, we'd say, hey, come on, let's go eat. We'll look down, it's like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, okay, let's go, you know. So we're finding ourselves doing that too now, actually. But you know, another one that we loved, my wife and I used to watch a lot of movies with him here at home. Of course, he had a lot of difficulties making it to the end of the movie. And, you know, at 99, I'm assuming he probably wouldn't even make it through the opening credits on it. So I think that would be a little difficult. But, you know, at 99, I think he would still love to go to the wrestling reunions and the Comic Cons. He absolutely loved those, being around the guys, talking shop. But most of all, he loved talking to the fans. It gave him a chance to be Lance Russell again. And that's what he loved. He loved interacting with the fans. He loved talking to them. He never tired of it.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Gave him a chance to be Lance Russell again. I think with the possible exception of him grabbing one of those quick naps that he used to grab spontaneously, I think nothing gave him more joy in his latter years than going to those reunions and those Comic Cons. It was fun to watch.
Hey, happy birthday, Lance. Man, I miss you every day. You were a lifelong friend, and even after a lifetime, I still consider you a friend. Happy birthday.
Oh, that was great looking at those pictures. You know, I'm sure that Dad had fun on each and every one of those trips. In fact, I know he did. And if you look closely at the faces of the people that got a chance to meet him, it looked like they were having fun too. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. I'm sure you went to a lot of shows with Dad. I'm sure you have some thoughts on Dad going to those shows.
You know, I do. And the one that I always like to talk about, it was the very first one. You know, it was a deal where after Mom had passed, we were getting Dad back involved in the business. And so we got him a Facebook site and got him on Twitter and all that. And well, I get a call out of the blue from Jeffrey Osborne up in Evansville, Indiana, and said, hey, we'd love to have Lance come up for our Comic-Con. I'm like, man, I think that'd be great. Let me talk to him about it. And, you know, went into Dad, said, hey, I want to take you up to this Comic-Con. And he said, well, what's a Comic-Con? And so I had to explain that. I had to explain YouTube to him. And, you know, of course, his first reaction was afterwards, he says, hey, you know, nobody's going to remember me. You know, I hadn't been on TV in ages. And I said, Dad, don't worry. People are going to remember you. So we get up there and we walk in, and it was almost like Elvis was entering the building. You know, the fans were just flocking to him because, I mean, Lance Russell, he hadn't been around in ages. They just absolutely surrounded him, wanted to see him, wanted to talk to him. And he just couldn't believe it. We went back to the hotel that night, and we were having dinner, and he said, I just can't believe it. I can't believe the number of people that came up and wanted my autograph and remembered me, and we talked, and he just had a great time. From then on, it just set him up. He would just want to do more and see the fans more and more.
Happy birthday, Lance Russell. Always will be the greatest of all time.
Exactly. Happy birthday, Lance Russell. I'll remember you to the day I die. You are awesome.
Happy birthday, Dad. 99.
Friday night.
I'm so glad you brought that idea up to Dad to go to some of those Comic Cons, those wrestle reunions. I think he truly enjoyed it. It was a great capper to a terrific career in radio and television. It was a career I think that he truly enjoyed.
You're exactly right. A large part of that enjoyment came from the fact that Dad followed his dream. Making money of doing what he loved. It's a classic example of the old Mark Twain quote. Find a job that you love and you never work a day in your life.
I love that quote, and I 100% agree with it. And while we're quoting, I am told that there are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who work to live, and there are people who live to work. And I'm pretty sure that Lance Russell was in that latter category. He enjoyed it.
He did. I think that's Dad's personality, although he did come across sometimes as being shy, but he loved performing and was very comfortable in front of a crowd. And that started young, I think, with him. And I think you've got some pictures actually that may show that. So why don't we show some of those?
Why don't we do that? Lance Russell was born in Little Rock, Arkansas to Marion Lanier and David Warren Russell. He was the youngest of their two children, but growing up in Arkansas was not in the cards for Lance, although he did like to fish there. Lance's father was an automobile executive whose job would take the family north to Michigan and then to Ohio before they would make their way back down south, settling in Jackson, Tennessee. From this picture of Lance's dad, it isn't difficult to tell which side of the family Lance took after. This picture was scanned from a very small black and white photo, so it's a little hard to make out details, but it's Lance, his brother, and their father. And if you didn't know different, you might think this was a photo of Lance and his two sons. In high school, Lance was involved in the usual extracurricular activities. He was on the bowling team. He played football, oddly, for a skinny guy. His position was guard. And no, he didn't have a gambling problem. He just had a love of performing and public speaking. As a student, he often entered speech competitions. He graduated with his high school sweetheart Audrey in 1944, but thoughts of a career had to take a back seat to World War II. Lance did what many high school graduates did in 1944. He enlisted in the Army. After a brief stint with a field artillery unit, he was transferred to the Armed Forces Radio Network, where he waged war on the airwaves in France and Germany, and no doubt cemented his passion for broadcasting. After the war, Lance married his gal Audrey, and they joined their extended family in Jackson, Tennessee. Lance worked in the radio and television business in Jackson. He was a sportscaster for the local news and did color commentary and play-by-play announcing for local sporting events. And as most of you know, that's where Lance first tried his hand at announcing wrestling. Here he is, seen interviewing a very young Lou Thesz. Little did anyone know at that time that wrestling would become a part of Lance's life until the end of his days.
Man, it's great to see those old photos. The one picture in there of Dad and Lou Thesz is without a doubt my favorite picture of Dad. There's not many guys out there that have a picture that young of Lou Thesz.
I never thought about that before that. You're absolutely right. You don't see a lot of young Lou Thesz photos, at least I don't.
And I tell you what, I love seeing the picture of Dad and his brother and their father, which would our grandfather. I love seeing those. If you notice something in those pictures, I almost am afraid to bring it up because I inherited it myself, was the fact that of Dad's trademark is the famous Lance Russell nose. And you can definitely tell he got it naturally, as thus I did too. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have something I want to show you. We were looking through some of Dad's old memorabilia the other day and came across a postcard. When's the last time you ever saw a postcard, especially one like this? I'm not real good on the camera here, am I? I could never make it as Carol Merrill on Price is Right. One thing I did want to call you, I don't think you can see it here. I'll try to get a tighter shot of it. 2 cents is what it cost to mail a postcard. This would have been back in the 1950s, I think. and it's addressed to Lance Russell at get my finger out of the WDXI. And this is what they wrote on the back. And let me cut to a picture of that and read it to you because I think you'll find it interesting. Dear Lance, old buddy, had it ever occurred to you if you would let your hair grow long that perhaps it'd make your nose less prominent? Fan mail. Understand now, we are all for you. We enjoy you giving your sports news and your comments on the wrestling matches. Wishing you always the best. Some Milan viewers. Funny stuff, right, man?
That is funny, and I hate to tell Dad if I was there, but if you grow your hair long, it doesn't change the size of your nose, so it's still there.
It does not. And in case you were wondering, this is a picture of Dad during that period behind a microphone. And I guess his hairstyle is apropos for the times. I think it got much longer as the decades went on here, and rock and roll became more popular.
Hey, this is Shane Russell. I just happened to run in the legendary Liars Lunch crowd right here, and since today is my dad's would have been my dad's 99th birthday, I think everybody's got a little special something to say. Everybody say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to a legend of Memphis, Tennessee.
That's right. Happy birthday.
Well, there you have it, Shana. This has been fun, as always. I love getting together with you and wishing Dad a happy birthday. And I particularly enjoy reading all the comments that people chime in after the fact. And it's great to know that Dad is still remembered and loved, I think.
You know, you're exactly right, William Lance. You know, when I go around and do some of these wrestling reunions, and I don't do many of them, but I go to some of these Comic Cons, I just love to listen to the fans. You know, I usually have a table set up with some of Dad's memorabilia, and they come by and we talk Lance Russell and tell stories about him and, you know, different things like that. So I can't thank everybody enough for remembering Dad, for being the wrestling announcing legend he is, and part of the greatest wrestling tag team announce team ever, with Dave Brown and Lance Russell. So thanks again, everybody.
Hey, you go first.
That's so well done. That's so well done. I was making little inside comments with you and Adam, and we, I think, are all in agreement that is just so well put together. But that is so Lance Russell, and I love the fact the man is 99 years old, and we're still talking about him and his place in Memphis wrestling like we did when he was alive, and that's called keeping the memories alive. Talking Memphis wrestling. 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. Give them all stars. That's phenomenal.
There's 5-star right there. Lance Russell, Michael St. John. I would think this was 96, 97, probably 97.
This was 97. It was, and that's a 5-star Lance Russell and a 1-star Michael St. John. I can assure you.
And this is from April of 1997. Adam, I'd like for you to put Al Tuttle's last comment up, and let's talk about this a little bit, and then we're certainly going to talk about the WCW Jim Crockett promotion days. It said, hello, RH and Michael. Lance may be the only guy that called matches with 2 weathermen. Of course, Dave Brown as well as Bob Caudle. Caudle was doing the weather in Raleigh, North Carolina, and calling NWA wrestling at the same time for many years. And I think Bob and Lance co-hosted NWA Pro together back in the day. And I think Bob Caudle is an announcer that worked for Jim Cornette for Smoky Mountain, and certainly we talk about the Jim Rosses, and we even talk about Tony Schiavone every once in a while. Of course, Jim Ross. We don't talk about Bob Caudle, and apparently he was involved in politics in some sort of way, Michael, I believe.
Well, let me say this about Bob Caudle. You go into the Carolinas, into the Virginia area, and you go up in the Norfolk area, and Bob Caudle is as a saint in that area as Lance Russell is that we're talking about. I mean, he was very well respected. I believe he did run or was in politics at one time, but Bob was very understated. He was not as his personality was a little bit more reserved than Lance's was, to say the least. And I think he endeared himself to the wrestling fans by just being the weather guy that was doing wrestling and the wrestling guy that did weather. Whereas I think Lance was a cut above. No disrespect to Bob Caudle, but I think Lance was just a cut above.
Adam put BC Collins. This is remarkable. BC's last comment. Not that one. I'm sorry. The one about Bob. I didn't see the latest one. Bob Caudle is still with us, Michael. God bless him, at 101 years old. And Shane Russell is having a comment today, and I'll let you read the comment right now from Shane Russell. Here's Michael St. John.
Thank you for all the kind words about Dad. I miss him dearly. Happy 99th, Dad. Bob and Dad were good friends and talked on occasion. You know, the thing about Bob Caudle, our good friend Mike Mooneyham over with the Post-Courier newspaper in Charleston, one of the best professional wrestling writers in the history of our sport, just had a few weeks ago had like a flashback column about Bob Caudle that I found to be, I read it on Twitter, and I found it to be just incredibly interesting. And yes, Bob Caudle is still alive. And if I'm not mistaken, his wife is also.
That's amazing. And Adam points out that world-class and Texas announcer Bill Mercer is still alive at 99 years. It's Lance Russell's 99th year as he's spending it in heaven looking down. Shane's on, and Shane, I don't know if you just jumped in or not, but we did show that great video you and Rusty put together, and everybody, tears in their eyes. It's absolutely just tremendous, fantastic. I thank you for making sure I had the link and share it. And folks, if you missed it a few minutes ago, when we close the show today, we are going to show the Lance Russell video one more time, and it was good to see cameos from Shane and from Dave and Jerry Calhoun, and of course Jerry the King. Al Tuttle says, I've said it before, Lance and Bob sounded like two old fishing buddies talking when they were together in WCW.
That might be the best comment of the night. I think that's right on target. Somebody mentioned Bill Mercer. Bill Mercer was a very well-respected commentator on a national level in the National Football League, when the National Football League was only one game every Sunday back in the 60s and early 70s. One time was the voice of the Dallas Cowboys along with Brad Sham. And Bill Mercer, an ultimate pro, but again, a different style, a different kind of, play-by-play guy, if you would. Lance was in a league of his own, and I'm biased. I'll tell you that first off, but I think Lance and I'll include Dave in it too. They were in a league of their own, and I think they wrote a lot of the book, quote unquote, of how the wrestling announcers should do the game. It's unfortunate that some of them now do not do it that way. And while I'm saying this and making this comment, I've been watching Joe Tessitore, who I have a lot of respect doing college football, on the wrestling show. And no offense, and I think Joe Tessitore is an outstanding announcer, as Bob Costas was and so forth. Bob Costas once tried doing wrestling commentating in St. Louis for Sam Munchnick when Larry Matzik had left for a while. He didn't go over either, and I don't think Joe Tessitore's got it either. I'm sorry. I think Joe Tessitore is an excellent announcer. I don't know him personally. I'd love to meet him, but I don't think he's a wrestling guy. And I think it takes something special. And I think part of the special it takes to be a great wrestling commentator, in my opinion, is a love for the sport. And I think Lance Russell had that to the bottom of his heart.
Shane is asking, do y'all have a favorite match that Lance called? And we've seen Lance do a million. I think we showed one last week, Michael, that has to be, if it's not number one, it's a close number two, the AWA World Championship match from May 9th, 1988, that we showed last week, where Jerry Lawler finally completed the story of winning the AWA World Championship, the World Heavyweight Champion. Lance's commentary in that was tremendous.
I totally agree. And I think that was a perfect, and we talked about it last week, that was a perfect example of Lance Russell, the hometown wrestling commentator, going on a national stage and doing it the right way. I think that was a crowning achievement. One and Shane, I'll tell you, that's a hard question because there are so many. Because for every one you come up with, somebody's going to mention another, and you go, "Oh yeah, that was even better." So that's a tough question. But I agree with you, Randy. I think that was the crown jewel of the Lance Russell commentary that we watched last week with the winning of the world title by Jerry the King Lawler.
Adam, the pictures of Lance that we already went through that I uploaded to the show, let's just go through those pictures real quick as we're celebrating the 99th. And this, I believe, this is close to one of the first appearances in the Channel 5 studios, I believe. But that's a great deal. When you look at announcers, I think JR and Steve Austin had great chemistry. I think when it's Jerry Lawler, I think Jerry Lawler and Lance Russell was absolutely unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable chemistry and a great picture of Lance and Jerry Lawler.
These are some great pictures, period. By the way, for folks that are following the NCAA tournament, the first play-in game has gone to Alabama State on a one late second bucket. And Alabama State now will go forward in the NCAA tournament on Friday to take on the Auburn Tigers. If you're familiar with geography in Alabama, the two teams are 55 miles apart and very rarely, if ever, have played each other.
That picture we're seeing right now is in Jonesboro. This is Lance Russell's last final appearance at a pro wrestling event. This was Brandon Baxter's Memphis Wrestling reunion show at Earl Bell Center. That young man beside Lance, at the time, that's my roughly 9 or 10-year-old great nephew, Cal Richardson. Cal is 20 years old now. Me, Lance, and Dave. Just a fantastic memories there. As we skip to other pictures. This we showed before. This is the celebration of life. This is a great picture from Jerry Lawler's Hall of Fame Bar and Grill after this celebration of life at Jerry Lawler's Hall of Fame Bar and Grill. And Adam is saying that he was there at the Bar and Grill too. I believe this looks like the Jackson Coliseum there with Lance and Dave Brown. Just a great deal there. Great picture. We'll see. This is one of my favorites as Lance is looking at a picture of himself. I think this is just classic. Michael?
This is a great, and that backdrop. I wonder who did. I wonder if Shane may have gotten that backdrop made, or if that was something that they had made for that event. But that's a fabulous backdrop. What a great picture of him.
Yeah, I think it was just fantastic. In 1994, we got fancier with our Hall of Fame plaques when years went on. This was for March the 7th, 1994. Honor of Outstanding Achievements presented to Lance Russell, Legends of Wrestling from the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's great as well. Just fantastic. I want to do a little sports deal. Arkansas State University, where my story began in college. They're in the NIT tournament. They're against SLU tonight. SLU with a 19-14 record. Arkansas State Red Wolves with a 24-10. They are playing tonight at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time on ESPN and ESPN Plus. So we'll support the Red Wolves, Michael.
Well, SLU, by the way, is called SLU. If folks in the St. Louis area are familiar with it, they're the St. Louis Billikens, and that is a private Catholic college right off Highway 40, right down the street from the old Keel Center, and been to many events on that campus. But the Billikens of SLU, they call it SLU. It's St. Louis University, and I would think Arkansas State would have the advantage there. And I'd love to hear maybe before we go off the air, we'll get a score on that game.
It's a home game, and in the Sun Belt Conference, Arkansas State this year has led the leads. As Frank Seaton, Arkansas boys, saying, "Go Red Wolves." You know, back in the day when I was in school, we weren't the Red Wolves. Politically correct stuff got to our ASU Indians. Michael, just your thoughts on when that happened. It happened to the Washington Redskins. It happened to the Cleveland Indians. It happened to the Arkansas State Indians. I can tell that we might should not go there with your answer. Am I correct?
No, here's my answer, and it's going to be a short one. When you erase history, people will never know history. And my son was at Florida State University when that happened, and he was an assistant football coach. And I remember getting a call from him, and he was all giddy and excited because the chief of the Seminole tribe in Florida came to the university and wanted a meeting with Bobby Bowden. And Coach Bowden sat down with the chief of the Seminole Nation. And the chief told Bobby Bowden, please do not change your mascot and your nickname. We as Seminole, and the Seminole tribe, the history of the Seminole tribe, they were sort of the outcasts. They were the runaway Indians from other tribes that ended up in Florida, and they band together along with several of the other congruent people there of the nations and made the Seminole tribe. And he said, don't do it, please. Coach Bowden, we do not want you to change our name. We are proud to be the mascot of Florida State University. And Coach Bowden would not relent to the pressure, and they remained the Seminoles. The chief also told him they had just opened 2 brand new casinos in Florida, and they were called the Seminole Casino, one of which was on Alligator Alley, and I forget where the other one was, somewhere down in the Miami area. But he said that the notion that Florida State Seminoles and the Seminole casinos was a great advertising gimmick by accident, if you would. Yes. And he didn't want it to go away either. So they're still the Seminoles to this day. I think when you erase history, you're asking for trouble. That's my personal opinion only.
Al Tuttle says that Native Americans overwhelmingly want the Redskins name back for the football team. And that's one thing I remember back. I was stubborn. And I said, I'm an Indian, I'll die Indian, I won't own a Red Wolf thing my entire life. But it took my great nephew Corbin to be on the Arkansas State football team. And guess what Uncle Randy wore? A Red Wolves jersey, some kind of family certainly involved in that. The University of Arkansas Razorbacks play Kansas on Thursday at about 6 p.m. And I'll make my Razorback fans mad at me. I'm in shock. The Razorback, how many SEC, and I know that's the best conference in basketball, but what do they have? 20 some?
14 teams. 14 teams. It's an all-time record. All 14 teams made 14 teams out of, I think we have, is it 16 or 18 in the conference now? 14. Vanderbilt made it. I don't know how. They play St. Mary's, and I don't think they'll go further than the first round, but that's my opinion. I think the funny matchup, though, is I love the idea now that Alabama State plays Auburn. They're 55 miles apart, and they're playing at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky on Friday. They had to go all the way to Lexington to play the game.
That is fantastic. Is the Wildcats in the big dance?
Oh, absolutely. They're, I think, a 3rd seed. They're good. I think Arkansas may make a little bit of a run here because I think they started really coming on late and they're really gelling in the season. You know, it's really funny. I've been watching some coaching things, and I was with a coach today at Coleman High School. Trent Walker's the new coach there. I've known Trent since his playing days. I bought my house from his dad, who owns Walker Brothers down here. And I was talking to Trent, and I made the point to him because he played at Coleman High School. Now he's coming back 15 years later. He's the head football coach. And I told him, I said, the first year you establish the culture. And in the first year, you can't expect miracles unless you've got a team loaded with talent. But you establish the culture, what you're expecting, what they can anticipate. And he's going through, he's only been there like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, and he's going through that. And I was witnessing it today. And that's why I brought it up to him. I said, you create the culture year one. Year two, you build on the culture, because then the kids know what to expect of you. And then you start building on the talent. I promise you, within the next 3 years, Coleman High School at either 6A or 5A in the state of Alabama will be, if not in the state championship game, in the state playoffs at a semifinal level, without a doubt. He's that good.
All right, Randy Hills and Michael St. John. Pat Trammell is out of a business meeting. Where is Pat? Michael, you suggested where he needed to go eat.
He's in Pell City, which is about 60 miles east of Birmingham, down I-20. That's the area that sort of got blasted by the tornadoes Saturday night. The area south of I-20 and east of I-65, down in the area where I consult with Radio Alabama and Lee Perriman stations. Thank God none of our Radio Alabama stations got affected, but they did wall-to-wall coverage of the tornadic events. We had a school down there, Winterboro High School, which was one of the oldest schools still in use in the state of Alabama as a high school. The old building just got torn away. It got blown away. The bus, you've seen the picture of the bus upright leaning against the gymnasium. Well, that's Winterboro High School. They're going to build a new high school now, finally, but it took a tornado to take it out. I think we had 3 or 4. I think they found a 4th person that died during the event today, which is always sad. But, we were here. Funny story, and I know this is not about wrestling, but Saturday night at 5:45 in this very room was 11 people. This is the safe room of my house. This room is actually underground, and it's, as you can tell, the acoustics are very good. It's dead. It's underground. I'm surrounded by earth, and this was built as the safe room in this house. I had, including Joshua, 11 people in this room. We had the television on, a TV station, and we were streaming too on the monitors, watching it. Thank God we didn't get a tornado in this area, but there was a warning that was issued. And for about 15 minutes, we were hunkered down here. But in this little room, there's 11 people all watching to see if a tornado is going to come our way.
We were safe here. Paragould and Kennett, Missouri, and Poplar Bluff, Missouri all got hit pretty bad. So prayers out to everybody. We're going to talk some wrestling. We're going to talk some modern wrestling when we return. Adam, let's reset at the 1 hour mark into this show with the Open. We replay the Open, and we'll be back. Michael St. John and I'm Randy Hills. We'll be back with modern wrestling.
You'll see America's favorite sport on WHBQ television.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
I think it's no secret for those of you, and we have the most loyal internet audience I've ever seen. If you take a look at our audience, then you also take a look at every member of this panel, including myself. I have a different view of modern wrestling, and we'll probably, Michael and I will get in to our different philosophies on modern wrestling, and we will talk about that in a little bit. This is a thing that I used to always remember, and this was in the 80s, and no need to mention any names, but the fabulous ones were hotter than a firecracker, selling out record business over like Rover. And one veteran wrestler used to say to anybody that would listen, and he would even, to his benefit, he would tell it to the wrestlers, you're killing the territory, you're killing the territory, the dancing and all that. First of all, when you talk about something new, sometimes you forget that's already been done. He used to complain about the fabulous ones shaking their hiney. What does that have to do in wrestling? Do you think Jackie Fargo might have shook his hiney more than once, Michael St. John? You think?
Yes, yes, and yes.
No doubt about it. When I talk about Memphis wrestling now, I still say I was a kid and then I was involved in it and I loved it. It's a passion and it's almost obsession with it. But I like to keep my mind clear and I like to keep up with the times. And I am a wrestling promoter by heart and by birth almost. And name of the game is transcending the business, growing the business, finding different means of income for the business, and that sort of thing. This past year, since the merger of TKO, the UFC, and WWE, the revenue and the revenue streams and the money these guys are making are absolutely unbelievable. Here's one thing you have to say. You can't say some of these dead-gum wrestlers now, the most athletic people I've ever seen in my life. Does it make sense to some of us? Absolutely not. Are 60 and 70-year-old men the target audience right now? No. Is it making sense to the 10-year-old and the 15-year-old and the 20-something-year-old? It absolutely is, and there's no doubt about it. Now, I watched and Michael did too. Michael, I think, watched it live. I watched it 50 times today, over and over and over and over again. Because since the elimination surprise the turn to heel of John Cena after 25 years being the top babyface in the company, it was time yesterday in where the heck Brussels? Brussels. Where in the world is Brussels, Michael St. John?
Belgium.
Belgium and the European
Europe. Yes.
area,
European.
no doubt about it.
A German-speaking country. And then, by the way, they're known for a lot more than their waffles. And that's always sort of been a hotbed. That part of Europe has always been sort of a hotbed for professional wrestling all the way back into the 60s and 50s. And you had several European stars that came out of that area. So, I would think Brussels would be a very hot wrestling area.
European crowds always were. This is the first Raw that was ever there. They aired it live at 3 o'clock this afternoon, or Monday afternoon, and then I watched some of it live. And I'm sure, did you watch it on Peacock on Netflix?
Actually, no. I had gotten a copy of it from a friend of mine yesterday, and watched it. I watched it last night late before I went to bed, and then watched the thing again that you sent earlier today.
Now, Adam, I want you to see Cody pictures. I want you to just go with it slowly and put that up on the screen as I give my thoughts. People, this thing last night worked in front of 20,000 people with a hot audience. This thing worked. As John Cena for the first time in 25 years, for his first time since becoming John Cena in the WWF, he was a heel. He came out, got in the ring, and I really hadn't noticed Michael before. I knew that he knew what he was doing, but the timing of this promo was unbelievable. The pauses for effect. He let everything he said sink in, not only to the 20,000 people in attendance, but he certainly, everybody, the millions of people that watch this, it sunk in. He started in such a way that a baby face or a heel always has to have in their mind justification of what they're doing is the right thing, whether it's a lie, whether it's excuses, or no matter what the case. Some of the comments on this that he led is he just milked the audience, said one word, Cena, and they chanted let's go Cena, Cena sucks, and he got agitated and dropped the microphone, and he milked it. The timing was great. And his facial expressions, as you see it there, you see Cena, you see Cody too, but Cena's facial expressions, in the past I thought sometimes were phony. They were right on on point. It was unbelievable. He opened up by saying, putting the blame, and look at that facial expression. He put the blame on us. He said, "This is all your fault. Cody Rhodes, has been a victim of an abusive relationship, and you, the fans, abuse me." Then he kept making points, and he kept saying, "It wasn't enough. I got over. It wasn't enough. I won, and I won, and I won, and it wasn't enough. I wrestled all the top stars and beat them, and it was not. You ruined it. It was not enough. What did you get out of being mean to me? What did you get?" And then, how about you get this brand new Chinese toy, brand new toy in Cody Rhodes? What about me? Send me off, pack my bags, go away? What about me? What have I ever done? I don't need you anymore. You guys sit there on your ass and you watch me be a star. You say, new gimmick? This ain't a gimmick. For the first time in my career, this is me. You say, change my merchandise. I designed this merchandise. I live this merchandise. You guys wear my merchandise. You guys say I should change my music. We should change my music. Well, my voice is on that music. You get your own song and see if you want to change that music. And then they also it's just a tremendous one thing after another. Said, y'all have sat there on your ass this whole time, and he did say ass, he said son of a bitch, he said bastard. He said, you guys sat there on your ass, and I became a star. Then the music hit. And after the music hit, Cody Rhodes came out, and I think they were ready for Cody Rhodes and the people went unglued. As again, that picture of Cody Rhodes and the great John Cena. Looking forward to WrestleMania coming up Easter weekend. Michael, before we talk about the promo, and I will say this, and I know this is fresh on my mind, and maybe that had something to do with what I'm about to say. First of all, I think it was the best promo of by far of John Cena's life. Being a heel is fun. He's wanted to be a heel for 25 years, and Vince wouldn't let him. He was having fun, and because of that, I think he was good. And I think, I would say at this point, watching it just yesterday and 50 times today, not only is it the best promo of his life, it's one in the top 10 and maybe higher than that. It was just fantastic. And my prediction is WrestleMania, how can they lose? How can they lose with all that's going to be going on? Will be the most profitable WrestleMania in history as we're coming in with 41. I know, Michael, you had different views on this than I did. You didn't seem as near as fired up or excited as I did, so we'll let you have your points.
Well, first of all, I think with John Cena, you're talking about one of the most articulate talkers in wrestling that has come along in a long, long time. I mean, you look at The Rock. The Rock reinvented the way to do a promo in third party. That was unique. Austin could talk, but Austin couldn't talk to this degree because of the vocabulary. I think John is a very smart person. He's a great actor. He's become a big actor. And the fact of the matter is, the more acting training and the more movie experience he got, the better promo guy he got to be. And I think that's without a shadow of a doubt, that's the case. I agree with you as far as it being probably his best promo. I don't disagree with that. The thing that got me were two things. Number one, I think his segment ran long. And I know he had a lot to say, and I know the people interrupted him with the chants and the boos and the singing and all that. I get that. But this whole segment went almost 25 minutes. That's a sitcom. That's a show on TV. And I just thought that it could have been said in 7 minutes or 10 minutes instead of being said in 25. I thought the best part of the promo, though, was when Cody came out, and it was to point to point to point. He had less than 3 minutes on camera. And when he finally says, I want to fight the John Cena I was excited about fighting, I don't want to fight this whiny bitch, and drop the mic and walk out. I thought that was classic. I thought that the comeback by Cody Rhodes and the fact they didn't touch each other. I think when Cody Rhodes came to the ring, the fans in Brussels, just like the fans in the United States would have been, they were anticipating a fight and a brawl. It never happened. And I think the WWE was smart on having them verbally battle without physically battling. I think, though, this is sort of a culmination of something that I've sort of seen since The Rock came back as the tactical head of the WWE in this day and time, and just in talking to people and watching people's comments on Twitter and even the people's comments on the show here. I think we've come to an age of what I call the affable heel. And the affable heel, in my language, is the heel that was a head over heels baby face. I mean, was an untouchable baby face. They go to the dark side. The people play along for the ride, but don't really believe it in their heart and don't buy it in their heart. And as a result, The Rock is still very, very popular. It is him doing the heelish stuff that he's done on the WWE shows over the last year has not hurt his popularity at the box office or his demand as an actor. If anything, it's made it bigger. And I think you're starting to see that same thing play into the John Cena role.
Why does that hurt if they're doing record business?
It doesn't hurt.
Why does that hurt?
It doesn't hurt, but it's a new form of a heel in the wrestling business. In the wrestling world itself, it's a new type of heel. And it's a type of heel.
I think it started with the NWO and WCW, the cool heel.
You think that that's going okay? You think that's going back all that far? I think it's gone to another level with these guys. I think this promo is an example that they've taken it to the next level.
I think one reason it's a new level, and you mentioned it, I think The Rock, as for brings another audience, which is what you want. You want not just typical wrestling fans. You want another audience. The people that watched him in whatever movie that you can name, many of his movies, he brought them with him to the WWE. John Cena, I can't tell you one movie except The Marine, and I can tell you that one, but he's done others, and apparently he's getting hotter. By the way, Frank Seaton lets us know that in the NIT game, Arkansas State leading early 15-2. So I appreciate that, Frank, keeping that up. So here's another thing I think, Michael, is do they hate The Rock like they used to hate Al Green or Ken Ramey? Absolutely not. But why is that? That's because of shows like this, and because of Busted Open and Jim Cornette's podcast and Jeff Jarrett's podcast and so many other people. The business has just been exposed. So
the curtain has been pulled back from Oz.
Yeah. Has it been pulled back too much? Did I like it better back in the day? But once you take the toothpicks out of the tube, you can't, hello Pat Rose, you can't put it back in, and they're producing a wrestling product for 2025. And I just thought, and it's interesting, I was listening to Busted Open, and Bully Ray was just blown away, and he's stuck in the past as far as ring style, but not so much if the story's right, the heat's right, and he thought that was tremendous. William Robinson likes the fact that I shout out to Dr. Ken Ramey. It's the point that I tried to make at the beginning of this diatribe, is you can't compare it to our glory days. You just can't. Just like you can't compare it, I'm sure you're doing things right now. First of all, you wouldn't have a studio back in the day in your house, correct?
Not unless I was very, very, very rich, or a very, very big star that demanded it. No, absolutely not.
And now,
I don't agree. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think you made a great point, and I don't want to gloss over it. I don't want to lose it. I want to interrupt you just here for a second. I don't think I witnessed firsthand 3 feet behind the world heavyweight champion when a guy came at him with a knife to stab him. That's how hot the heat was. Okay, in the Nashville Fairgrounds Arena that night. Somebody was willing to kill or attempt murder on a heel for a wrestling story or a wrestling show. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think anybody in the world wants to shoot John Cena or wants to shoot The Rock. If anything, they understand that it is a play. They understand that it is, and that's, like you said, moving, like I said, or like you alluded to, pulling back the curtain. It is a different world. But I think the heel in today's world is never going to get to the heel level as, let's take, for instance, Harley Race. Pat Rose made a great comment here. Tojo would absolutely roll over in his grave. I agree with that. Any of the old school boys would, because that's not the wrestling business today. Isn't the wrestling sport of that era. That's my point.
And the point is that you can't take it back. You can't take it back. So for those that's just totally offended by the WWE product, and it's easy for me to get offended at times at the AEW product. And in the past, many times in the past, I've been where I couldn't watch the WWE. Now I won't miss it. I just think they're at home run, just major level type of thing. Just
now,
major level.
Just before you get off this point, Randy, let's make another point. I think also not only the heel heat issue, I think the style of wrestling, and I have more problems with the style of the way the wrestling style has gone in the ring versus what it was than I do of this kind of heel versus the old school hot heel angle or the hot heel person. I don't like the trapeze shit. I mean, excuse my French. I don't like the trapeze stuff. To me, when I turn on certain wrestling events, and it's not only the AEW, I'm not just pointing out the AEW, but I see rehearsed trapeze acts that you saw in the circus back in the 30s and 40s when wrestling came out of the sideshows. They didn't do trapeze stuff back then. They did wrestling. They did on the ground kind of wrestling. I don't like the trapeze stuff. I also don't like the absolute carnage that is allowed in the ring when furniture is involved, when a pizza cutter was involved. I saw a video from some stupid wrestling show where a guy stapled a guy's tongue to the ring ropes. My God, that's ridiculous.
That's going beyond on the thing, and you don't see any of that kind of stuff, I don't think, in the WWE program. You see some of it in AEW, and it's a whole different deal. AEW is modeling what Tony Khan wants to see and the wrestling he likes, and he's a Japanese wrestling fan. He's modern, where to him the match is the most important thing. The story, even back in the day when we didn't call it the story, the angle, the program was the most important thing, and the drawing money. I tell you what I miss, something simple. When's the last time you seen this from the heel's caught in a headlock by the babyface? The heel reaches up, grabs, pulls the hair in, and gets the headlock itself. Classic heel move, simple. It's easy to understand. Obviously, it's against the rules. When's the last time you seen that?
Unless I saw it on a clip on YouTube or on Twitter from something 30 years ago, you don't. But also, and that's a classic heel move. To me, smashing somebody over the head with a light tube isn't.
I agree.
I'm sorry. It's just, to me, that is a fetish kind of wrestling that a sick bunch of folks might get into. I don't personally. If you do, that's your business. Just don't let me sit. I don't want to have to watch it. And if it's on YouTube and it shows up on my Twitter feed, sooner or later I'm going to have to watch it or at least get exposed to it. That's what I don't like.
I miss two things. I miss in wrestling. I miss cheating, as we've just talked about for 10 minutes. I miss cheating. Absolutely miss cheating. The second thing that I miss is selling stuff. I miss selling, and I miss taking your time. Where I disagree with you, I would have liked to, that Daggum scene was so good, I'd like to sing 10 more minutes of that. I couldn't give enough when I've watched it 50 different times. So the length of that, I thought it was as perfect of a segment I had ever seen. And I'm not just talking about modern wrestling. It was absolutely tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
Randy, Pat Rose has made a great comment on our comment section, and I want to totally agree with this, because on radio, this is sort of a style of, I was talking to somebody today, and I was very blessed in my radio career up until when I bought this place. I was at 5 different radio stations that were in the toilet, and we turned them around to make winners, and in 2 cases, make them number 1 in the market in a short period of time. And the first thing I did was I always did a thing called flushing the toilet. I always got what was taking away from what radio was, shut up and play the hits back then, or the personality in playing the hits back then. And I would, anything that was superfluous to that, get rid of. And in some cases, it included people. But that was how you started, and if you would, set the culture. In radio, I was always a proponent of less is more. And Pat made that comment on the wrestler regarding wrestling. And I always thought in wrestling that was the same thing. The simple move you're talking about with the side headlock, guy rips the hair, reverses the headlock, ref doesn't see it. People go, people get angry. They get a little angrier when something else happens. You're going to hit somebody with a closed fist. All of a sudden the referee turns, you wrap a chain around it, you whack a guy with the closed fist. People go crazy. I miss that part too, which is, like you said, the cheating. But think about how that played into those angles and how it brought the crowd up and made more people who were watching it on TV want to come and see the matches, whatever night it was, live. And that was part of the game. I don't think the WWE, in my opinion, when they do a show, I think they are more concentrated on what people are seeing through the eyes of the camera than what they're seeing live at the show. I just think that's their personal. I think the target is play for the camera and let everybody else enjoy it.
And that's because of the revenue situation without a doubt in the world. It's because that's where they're making the majority of the revenue, and that's why they've cut down different. They're not touring. It's good to be a wrestler now. They don't have to take near as many bumps as they used to, or be as on the plane as much, and they're making, like, some of them almost $10 million a year. It's just unbelievable. It's just tremendous, and the growth, man. I just love the Tojo Yamamoto as a heel, or the Al Green as a heel, and that's the sort of thing. And it was so much easier. Here's the thing: the heel back in the day, the one thing in his mind was not to entertain the fans. That's what all wrestlers do now. Just thinking, let's do 10 million spots, put our lives at stake. 10 million spots, when back in the day, Al Green pulling hair or Tojo Yamamoto throwing salt would get more reaction than somebody stapling somebody to the head.
Well, the other part of that too is, you mentioned selling, and that's a lost art. I mean, there's all the moves. I mean, PJ mentioned something about the thousands of moves and all that stuff. What's a finish anymore? What's a finishing move anymore? And I've said this before. What do you do for an encore when your first act is suicide? I think, and this gets to my second point that I was going to make, I think this angle that the WWE, the Hollywood writers, and that's what's writing the scripts now, or the programs, or the angles now, are Hollywood script writers. Everything plays out like a movie. Back in the day, everything didn't play out like a movie. And how many times did you go to a wrestling show, or I go to a wrestling show, and not know what the hell was going to happen? All we knew is something's going to happen. Now, 10,000 people have already predicted, how this is going to end and how it's going to finish. And there's leaks from writers, and there's all sorts because of the internet, all that good stuff. But I think this time it's going to be interesting. And I wanted to pick your brain as one of the best promoters and matchmakers and bookers of all time in this business. And I seriously mean that. And a lot of people have said that about you, Randy. How do you finish this? Do you put the belt on Cena and then turn it before he retires? Or do you have Cody go over in a 59 out of 60 minute match? How do you end this thing? Because I think the buildup is going to be so magnanimous between now and WrestleMania. I don't think there's anything they can do in WrestleMania that's going to top the buildup for it. That's my opinion.
Where they're going with it, I have no idea, because certainly I don't see at the end of the year, when that's it for Cena, he won't be the world champion then. I mean, is this a way to drop it? Because you have to look at politics. Wrestling's always had politics. Is this a way for The Rock to eventually be the champion? Is this a way for Cena to win, and then later on he and Rock have a falling out, and then at the end and I think that will backfire on them. That will backfire on them if that happens. But I'm just trying to think of their options and how they're thinking.
To me, the question mark that comes to mind, or the question that comes to my mind, or the idea that comes in my mind, what in the hell's happened to Roman Reigns? And Roman was the face of the company. Do they drop the belt to Cena and then put it back on Roman for a future rematch with Cody? I mean,
that's a possibility too.
There's money.
That's absolutely a possibility, because I think even though the past year the chosen guy has been Cody Rhodes, I think the long-term chosen guy is Roman Reigns. And Cody's right up there with them because they know what it's done with him at the top of the company the last year. Business didn't exactly collapse the last year with Cody. But that's an option.
Ratings went down though, Randy. Ratings went down from the Netflix switch. Ratings, the numbers were cut in half domestically. Now worldwide, it's a different story, but the ratings went down. My point, and this is another question for you, and again, I'm saying you're the man here. Is is Cody Rhodes, and he's a great looking champion, but is he long term? Are people going to ingratiate him the way they did Cena, the way they did the Hulk Hogan, the Steve Austins, the champions of the past? I think Cody, and I'll be honest with you, and maybe this is the old man in me talking, I think Cody made a big mistake when he got the neck tattoo. I really think he made a big mistake, because I think a lot of people are turned off about that. Casual wrestling fans, or fans that, tune in for a big show. I still think, in my opinion, I think if you had to say the people that can carry the crown the most effectively in the WWE right now, in my opinion, would be in this order: Roman Reigns, Rock, Cody Rhodes, and then maybe a Cena for a short period of time until retirement. The other thing to wonder about Cena, if Cena wins the title, he surpasses Ric Flair of holding the belt as many times. Is this the WWE's way of saying, okay, let's get the old guy out of here once and for all, and put the belt on Cena, even for a short period of time, to break that record?
Well, I think if Vince McMahon was in charge, that would absolutely be it, because Flair was WWF champion one time. Am I correct on that?
I believe you're right. Yes, sir.
And 16 times NWA champion.
Or 15
times. Vince McMahon, in his mind, doesn't even consider that. So, what's the fuss? Flair just held this title one time. That's his thinking. That philosophy of Vince McMahon, and it worked for him. Obviously, he's a billionaire. It worked for him, but what happened other places didn't count. What happened other places didn't count. Tremendous audience today. Camden Smith, Ty Rose, Pat's son is watching tonight, and I appreciate it. By the way, the tattoo, I don't like the tattoo either, and I do think it's the older person type of thing, and they're not going, they'll take our money, but they're going after the young people's money. And I think I've heard Cody said that his own wife didn't like it. The office didn't like it. I think it's a mistake too. I think it's a mistake. Do I think it was a deal killer? No, or this year would have gone on. And I disagree about the ratings. You can manipulate ratings. It's now not on free national cable. It's on a paid service that puts out video clips and looking at the Wrestling Observer newsletter and all that. And he's not too big at putting over WWE anyway, but he does. If you count the videos Netflix put out and the YouTube videos, the audience has never been bigger, never been bigger. People just watch it different, and there's Monday Night Raw is not on free network television anymore, period. So of course streaming will not have as much of an audience. It just won't. It's impossible, right?
Well, here's the deal. I think streaming worldwide is a whole different thing. Other countries are way ahead of us in streaming and people watching streaming, especially countries that did not have great television networks to begin with. I want to say Gary Stepp just said that Ric Flair was two-time. I thought he was. I didn't want to make that comment because I thought it might be wrong, but apparently he was two-time world champion. And the question I have too, with so many new fans, if you would, and you look at the era when Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and the quote unquote cartoon era of the WWE, wrestling got super popular. They were selling a lot of gimmicks. I mean, how many of folks watching tonight? I know my son still has all 16 of his WWE wrestling figures that first came out back in the day. And how many of us in that day got caught up in that? Then you had the Attitude Era. Then, of course, you got into the 21st century, and then COVID sort of stopped everything in the world. This is sort of a remake of, to me, at least to me, I'm seeing this as sort of a remake of the Attitude Era in a 21st century kind of way. And I may be way off on that, but I that's sort of, I see what this whole era, when we look back at it, is going to be. But, I have no idea where this is going. All I know is I think the writers have a very, very tough decision to make. And I would think that, wrestling with Vince has always been planning for the next WrestleMania. They've already got they got what's going to happen today for what's happening the third week in April. But for the next one, I'm wondering how far that thinking has carried over from Vince being ahead of the company into what the what the ultimate world is, and what Triple H thinks, or if Triple H is carrying some of that thinking and planning along with him into this new world.
A lot of thoughts about this, and here what I'm saying. I damn sure wish that I was a part of a major company that I was making $1 million or more a year. I absolutely was, and I think anybody would be lying if they said otherwise. They would say, yes, I would do that silly shit. Now, I wouldn't take a damn thing. What were we talking about?
A pizza cutter or a staple and staple into your head? No.
I would not do that at all. But here's what I tell you, young wrestlers, is that if you're in a major company and have a contract and make your major money, I'm not saying go to a town that's 30, 40, 50 people there and the promoter tells you to do something stupid, and you might get a $5, $10 payoff. Hell yeah, if they're asking you to do something like that, say hell F you and don't do it. So what does it matter if you lose that job that you might wrestle for them once or twice a year? But when a WWE or AEW or a TNA or any of those things, it's like any other job. If you want to work there, you gotta do. Now, if you've been the head cook at a successful restaurant, people came to buy your food because they liked your cooking, the boss will listen to you. But when you first started out, not so much. We're going to get a couple of things in. Michael, did you have something else to say?
Just real quick, and I'll make this real brief. I think you're absolutely right about the company and the loyalty to the company and the money that you're getting paid. But I think in the long run, the focus for any athlete, and believe you me, I've always believed this about the wrestlers, even when they weren't going to the gym and, weighing 300 pounds coming off the top rope and all that stuff. But I think now more than ever, I think more wrestlers are corporate in their thinking than ever been before. And I think that's on both sides of AEW and the WWE. Now, why I'm saying that is I've seen the WWE show that comes to Alabama. I've seen the AEW show that comes to Alabama. Tony, more so than the WWE, will give the fans what they're seeing on TV in that house show. I mean, he cuts no corners. I mean, he does it. What they're getting on TV, they're going to get in Bloomington, Minnesota, or Huntsville, Alabama, or Jonesboro, Arkansas, when they come. But I think the WWE stars is more of people come to see them. They get in and wrestle, but you're not going to see the kind of things that you see on Monday Night Raw or on the Friday show or the Saturday thing. you're not going to see exactly that kind of effort. You're going to see good matches and you're going to see stars be stars, but you're not going to see exactly what you're getting being fed on the shows that are promoting the pay-per-views. That's just my opinion.
Last week we ended the show by watching Jerry Lawler's AWA World Championship run victory over Curt Hennig May 9th, 1988. A few weeks later, Curt ended up tearing apart the studio. This is in the video archive, and this is a 5-minute and 57-second video. We'll show 2 videos tonight, and then we'll show the Lance Russell video again. So real quick, let's get into the Curt tearing apart the studio.
Memphis business, Covington Pike Toyota, the world's largest Toyota dealer, is going to be guaranteeing to the public that you have so much confidence in a hometown champion in Memphis that you're going to be guaranteeing that if Lawler loses, you'll return all the money to the people. That's an amazing thing.
That's right, Lance. We've got a lot of faith in Jerry. We've been associated with him a long time. We're confident that he'll win and keep the belt.
You gotta be.
If he doesn't, it'll be a great night of entertainment on the house.
On the house. That is something in there. Jerry made the comment to me, Kent, when Curt Hennig coming out here. He is not supposed to be in town until tomorrow, the day before.
First of all, who does this goof there think he is, coming out here telling he's going to get $50,000 back? Let me tell you something. You take them little shoe boxes with wheels, them little Toyotas, and drive them out of here. And if I see you driving down the road, I'll run right over you, punk. You got it?
You don't have to come out here and be nasty and start all that kind of stuff.
Lance, I'm going to tell you, there's not a doubt in my mind, or Covington Pike Toyota's mind, that Jerry will retain the crown. There's no way.
All right, I'm just about...
Hey, come on. Hey, come on. All right, Curt. You're acting like a hoodlum now. Come on, quit it. Curt! Curt, get off of him. Out of here. Come on, Curt. What are you in? What's the matter with you?
You think I'm out here playing around? You people out here don't know anything.
You don't come out here insulting and jumping on somebody like that.
This has gone too far. Jerry Lawler, who do you think you are? You're running around saying you're the heavyweight champion of the world. You've got your picture in every paper and every magazine around. I'm sick and tired. I've been sitting back in Minnesota and all the talk shows and everything is about Jerry Lawler. Well, let me tell you right now. Why don't you come out here right now, Jerry Lawler? I'm standing in your backyard. And you and I'll tell you what I'll do. I will cripple you so bad that they'll have to hand me that belt back on a silver platter.
Why don't you just get out of here? No, nobody asked you to come to this television show. You come out here and jump on a perfect gentleman that's standing
in. Perfect gentleman? What kind of bozo is he anyways? That guy doesn't have anything to do in my business. Let me tell you something, Lawler. I'm calling you out right now. I'll tell you what, if he doesn't come out here right now, I might just tear this whole damn studio apart.
All right, now don't get into that. You got a match coming up. It's 2 days away. You don't have to have that kind of an attitude about it. Now, you've made your point. You're a big, tough guy.
You don't understand. You people think I'm clowning around. I'm not, and I'm going to start with this.
Hey, listen, now, come on, Curt. Just get it out. Will you quit it? Put the bell down.
Get out here now. This studio is going down.
No.
Come on, Lawler.
No. Now, what in the world? Are you insane? Are you afraid of something?
Am I afraid of nothing, boy?
Best bell in the history of wrestling.
Boy, you certainly have the decorum and the attitude of a champion. Look at that, coming in here tearing up. Sure, you can do that.
I'm waiting for you, Lawler. What do you want me to go with next? I'm calling you out, Jerry Lawler. I'm calling you out, and I'm standing right in your own backyard. I'm waiting.
Now, why don't you wait 2 more days until the world title match is scheduled? You don't have to come in and start tearing our stuff up. That is an absolute disgrace. Oh, you want it on your record. You came in here and tore some stuff up. Is that it?
People don't understand. I'm a very unpredictable man.
I know that. All right, Curt. Now, come on. Now, enough's enough. This guy. What, are you crazy or something? I thought you had at least some sense.
That man has got something that belongs to me, and it's a heavyweight championship belt. You're the poorest excuse I've ever seen for a champion, and I've come for what's rightfully mine, and that's the heavyweight championship. Yeah. Who do you want me to start with some cameras?
Well, wait a minute. Why don't you just get out of it? You wait till Lawler gets a hold of you and take care of him. You don't have to get in here and start doing this kind of stuff.
Oh, you seem like you're a real good friend of his, though.
Well, certainly. I've known Lawler a long time, and I've been a friend of his. Now, all right, Kurt, now, come on. Just take it on out of here. You've already torn up our
Let's see just how good a friend you are of his.
Come on now.
I'll tell you what.
Hey, I'm
quiet.
I'm telling you one thing.
I am going to give you the count of 10, and if Jerry Lawler doesn't come out here, you're going to be wearing your nose on the other side of your face.
I'll tell you what you better do. You better be married to a lawyer because you do. All right, Kurt, now don't start that stuff. Let me go. Come on.
5.
Let me get out of it.
6. 7. 8. You don't run around here. Come on, get it.
Oh, big business.
I'm trying to tell you, I'm the greatest wrestler in the world. You come in here and try to rip me out. You're absolutely nothing. You're nothing. You're absolutely nothing. And I'm going to keep that what is mine.
Come on, take it over. Two guys, hey. Yeah, that's fine. It takes 3 of you to get out there and do something like that.
Boy, I wish we could have seen the rest of that. I remember seeing that, and I believe, if I'm not incorrect in my memory, I believe we did some highlights. There were some highlights of that little thing we just saw that I think was played in Memphis originally that we actually showed in Louisville, Nashville, and the other cities as well. I think Randy has frozen up on us, but that to me, and we've been talking about over the past half hour, to me, that's as real a heat as you can get in wrestling. And I know that the John Cena and the Cody Rhodes event that we saw on this show earlier, it exemplifies where wrestling is today. I don't know if you can get hotter heat than what you just saw. I mean, here's Kurt Hennig threatening the greatest announcer of all time, choking him out with his tie, and then Lawler thinks he's going to come out there and at least save Lance, and he gets Pearl Harbored by Robert Fuller, and I was trying to figure out who the other person was, and then gets kicked down low. I mean, to me, that is as wrestling heat as heat can get, and with that, the opportunity to show that, I think, was a great example of what, on the backside of what we were talking about, what true wrestling heat really was in the day that was true wrestling heat. Today's heat, in my opinion, is a different type of heat. It's a different style of heat. And I think the idea that it's wrestling's trying to appeal then more than to the wrestling fan, I think plays into it very, very well. We've had some super comments tonight from our audience and our listeners and our viewers that I think have been as on target as any I've seen in any time that I've done this program, thanks to Randy. And this is, when you look at this show in total, I mean, we've covered so much, Randy. This show has just been, I got to tell you, I've enjoyed this show as much as any we've ever done, because we've gone from the highlight of the great and wonderful Lance Russell on the precipice of being 100 years old now to comparing what we saw as real heat just now versus heat that we're seeing on with the big guys on TV right now. I mean, we sort of covered the gambit on this show.
We lost 3 minutes. We lost our connection. So your response to that video that we just saw, we did not get.
Oh, really? Okay. Sorry about that.
So go ahead, real quick.
Well, real quick, and the synopsis is that my synopsis was that we saw wrestling heat to its greatest extent on that clip, as we've been talking about the new kind of heat in wrestling that we've talked about earlier with the Cena and Cody Rhodes thing?
Adam thinks that I got kicked off, but you were still on.
I'm actually monitoring it on Twitter over here, and Twitter is about 2 minutes behind, and you're just now coming back. But I was on screen on Twitter earlier by myself, so maybe so. But nevertheless, that's my point.
Yeah, that's good. We are going to finish with the Lance Russell video one more time. This would have been Lance's 99th birthday. Final comments, because we'll go from the Lance video to the closing video off the air. But so this is your final words, and for me, the audience was great. I agree with Michael. It was great, everybody. We'll go from Michael's final comments to that video of Lance Russell. Again.
You couldn't end the show in a better way. And having to show this video now, if anybody came in late, you get to watch it for the first time. But to be honest with you, it's going to be better the second time around, because that's how good Lance Russell was. And my hats are off to you, Randy, for putting this show together, and for Adam Dunn and all the work he always does. But this show, in my opinion, and I hope our viewers and listeners agree, was a cut above. Thank you. And now the best video we've had to date of the GOAT.
Jerry Lawler comes in with Tommy Rich. Oh, boy. Lawler pounding away on dirty roads. Tommy Rich over here with Larry Wright and Don Bass. Yeah, get the cameras out of the way. They have absolutely gone berserk. Come on, Jerry. Now, we've had all of this for one day. I want to see. Get him off of it. Calhoun, get him out of here.
Hey, come on, Eddie. Can we get him out of there and get something going in? Oh. Well, we got an unscheduled fight is what we've got. Come on, Dundee. Eddie Marlin jumps in. Remember, Eddie, former wrestler himself, Danny Davis threw powder right into Eddie Marlin's eyes, and that's all.
Well, if that doesn't bring a smile to your face and bring back some great memories, it's possible that you did not grow up like I did in Memphis, Tennessee, sitting in front of a TV on Saturday mornings watching Memphis wrestling. Hello, everybody. William Lance Russell back again to talk about my favorite topic, Lance Russell and Memphis wrestling. The two are inseparable as far as I am concerned. As of the recording of this video, it is March the 18th, 2025, and today is Lance Russell's birthday. He would have been 99 years old today, and I'm not sure I can even contemplate what Lance would have been like at 99 years old. But as they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, so here to help me speculate on Lance at 99 is the only person I know who knows Lance Russell like I know Lance Russell, my brother, Jeffrey Shane Russell. What about it, Jeffrey Shane? Lance lived with you and your family for a few years in his latter life. You must have some thoughts about Lance at 99.
99 years old. It's just hard to even imagine. He lived with my wife and I for, the last years of his life, and we got to see him struggle with many things that old guys struggle with. And as you and I know, we're starting to struggle on some of those things too. Just dealing with, the day-to-day life. I can remember trying to change those hearing aid batteries out. Those things were so difficult. Even I had trouble doing it. That stuff he would always have issues with.
That was difficult.
The one thing I really loved, and my wife and I are doing it now, he was a big fan of the early bird specials at restaurants. He loved to go eat. He grabbed my wife and I, which, hey, come on, let's go eat. We'll go down. It's like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, okay, let's go. So we're finding ourselves doing that too now, actually. But another one that we loved, my wife and I used to watch a lot of movies with him here at home. Of course, he had a lot of difficulties making it to the end of the movie. And, at 99, I'm assuming he probably wouldn't even make it through the opening credits on it. So I think that would be a little difficult. But, at 99, I think he would still love to go to the wrestling reunions and the Comic Cons. He absolutely loved those. being around the guys, talking shop. But the most of all, he loved talking to the fans. It gave him a chance to be Lance Russell again. And that's what he loved. He loved interacting with the fans. He loved talking to them. He never tired of it.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Gave him a chance to be Lance Russell again. I think, with the possible exception of him grabbing one of those quick naps that he used to grab spontaneously, I think nothing gave him more joy in his latter years than going to those reunions and those Comic-Cons. It was fun to watch.
Hey, happy birthday, Lance. Man, I miss you every day. You were a lifelong friend, and even after a lifetime, I still consider you a friend. Happy birthday.
Oh, that was great looking at those pictures. You know, I'm sure that Dad had fun on each and every one of those trips. In fact, I know he did. And if you look closely at the faces of the people that got a chance to meet him, it looked like they were having fun too. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. I'm sure you went to a lot of shows with Dad. I'm sure you have some thoughts on Dad going to those shows.
You know, I do. And the one that I always like to talk about, it was the very first one. You know, it was a deal where after Mom had passed, we were getting Dad back involved in the business. And so we got him a Facebook site and got him on Twitter and all that. And well, I get a call out of the blue from Jeffrey Osborne up in Evansville, Indiana, and said, "Hey, we'd love to have Lance come up for our Comic-Con." I'm like, man, I think that'd be great. Let me talk to him about it. And went in to Dad, said, "Hey, I want to take you up to this Comic-Con." And he said, "Well, what's a Comic-Con?" And so I had to explain that. I had to explain YouTube to him. And of course, his first reaction was afterwards, he says, "Hey, nobody's going to remember me. I hadn't been on TV in ages." And I said, "Dad, don't worry. People are going to remember you. So we get up there and we walk in, and it was almost like Elvis was entering the building. The fans were just flocking to him because, Lance Russell, he hadn't been around in ages. They just absolutely surrounded him, wanted to see him, wanted to talk to him. And he just couldn't believe it. We went back to the hotel that night, and we were having dinner, and he said, "I just can't believe it. I can't believe the number of people that came up and wanted my autograph and remembered me, and we talked." And he just had a great time. From then on, it just set him up. He would just want to do more and see the fans more and more.
Happy birthday, Lance Russell. Always will be the greatest of all time.
Exactly. Happy birthday, Lance Russell. I'll remember you to the day I die. You are awesome.
Happy birthday, Dad. 99.
Friday night.
I'm so glad you brought that idea up to Dad to go to some of those Comic-Cons, those wrestle reunions. I think he truly enjoyed it. It was a great capper to a terrific career in radio and television. It was a career, I think, that he truly enjoyed.
You're exactly right. A large part of that enjoyment came from the fact that Dad followed his dream, making money of doing what he loved. It's a classic example of the old Mark Twain quote, find a job that you love and you never work a day in your life.
I love that quote, and I 100% agree with it. And while we're quoting, I am told that there are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who work to live, and there are people who live to work. And I'm pretty sure that Lance Russell was in that latter category. He enjoyed it.
He did. I think that's Dad's personality, although he did come across sometimes as being shy, but he loved performing and was very comfortable in front of a crowd. And that started young, I think, with him. And I think you've got some pictures, actually, that may show that. So why don't we show some of those?
Why don't we do that? Lance Russell was born in Little Rock, Arkansas to Marion Lanier and David Warren Russell. He was the youngest of their two children. But growing up in Arkansas was not in the cards for Lance, although he did like to fish there. Lance's father was an automobile executive whose job would take the family north to Michigan and then to Ohio before they would make their way back down south, settling in Jackson, Tennessee. From this picture of Lance's dad, it isn't difficult to tell which side of the family Lance took after. This picture was scanned from a very small black and white photo, so it's a little hard to make out details, but it's Lance, his brother, and their father. And if you didn't know different, you might think this was a photo of Lance and his two sons. In high school, Lance was involved in the usual extracurricular activities. He was on the bowling team. He played football, oddly, for a skinny guy. His position was guard. And no, he didn't have a gambling problem. He just had a love of performing and public speaking. As a student, he often entered speech competitions. He graduated with his high school sweetheart Audrey in 1944, but thoughts of a career had to take a back seat to World War II. Lance did what many high school graduates did in 1944. He enlisted in the Army. After a brief stint with a field artillery unit, he was transferred to the Armed Forces Radio Network, where he waged war on the airwaves in France and Germany, and no doubt cemented his passion for broadcasting. After the war, Lance married his gal Audrey, and they joined their extended family in Jackson, Tennessee. Lance worked in the radio and television business in Jackson. He was a sportscaster for the local news and did color commentary and play-by-play announcing for local sporting events. And as most of you know, that's where Lance first tried his hand at announcing wrestling. Here he is seen interviewing a very young Lou Thez. Little did anyone know at that time that wrestling would become a part of Lance's life until the end of his days.
Man, it's great to see those old photos. You know, the one picture in there of Dad and Lou Thez is without a doubt my favorite picture of Dad. There's not many guys out there that have a picture that young of Lou Thez.
I never thought about that before. That you're absolutely right. You don't see a lot of young Lou Thez photos, at least I don't.
And I tell you what, I love seeing the picture of Dad and his brother and their father, which would our grandfather. I love seeing those. If you notice something in those pictures, I almost am afraid to bring it up because I inherited it myself, was the fact that of Dad's trademark is the famous Lance Russell nose. And you can definitely tell he got it naturally, as thus I did too. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have something I want to show you. We were looking through some of Dad's old memorabilia the other day and came across a postcard. When's the last time you ever saw a postcard, especially one like this? I'm not real good on the camera here, am I? I could never make it as Carol Merrill on The Price is Right. One thing I did want to call you, I don't think you can see it here. I'll try to get a tighter shot of it. 2 cents is what it cost to mail a postcard. This would have been back in the 1950s, I think. And it's addressed to Lance Russell at get my finger out of WDXI. And this is what they wrote on the back. And let me cut to a picture of that and read it to you because I think you'll find it interesting. Dear Lance, old buddy, had it ever occurred to you if you would let your hair grow long that perhaps it'd make your nose less prominent? Fan mail. Understand now, we are all for you. We enjoy you giving your sports news and your comments on the wrestling matches. Wishing you always the best. Some Milan viewers. Funny stuff, right, man?
That is funny, and I hate to tell Dad, or if I was there, but if you grow your hair long, it doesn't change the size of your nose, so it's still there.
It does not. And in case you were wondering, this is a picture of Dad during that period behind a microphone. And I guess his hairstyle is apropos for the times. I think it got much longer as the decades went on here, and rock and roll became more popular.
Hey, this is Shane Russell. I just happened to run in the legendary Liars Lunch crowd right here, and since today is my dad's 99th birthday, I think everybody's got a little special something to say. Everybody say happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to a legend of Memphis, Tennessee.
That's right. Happy birthday.
Well, there you have it, Shayna. This has been fun, as always. I love getting together with you and wishing Dad a happy birthday. And I particularly enjoy reading all the comments that people chime in after the fact. And it's great to know that Dad is still remembered and loved, I think.
You know, you're exactly right, William Lance. You know, when I go around and do some of these wrestling reunions, and I don't do many of them, but I go to some of these Comic Cons, I just love to listen to the fans. You know, I usually have a table set up with some of Dad's memorabilia, and they come by and we talk Lance Russell and tell stories about him and, you know, different things like that. So I can't thank everybody enough for remembering Dad, for being the wrestling announcing legend he is, and part of the greatest wrestling tag team announce team ever with Dave Brown and Lance Russell. So thanks again, everybody.